I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Last October, we held a hearing in Chicago to investigate the deteriorating mail delivery performance in that region. In February, we went to Baltimore, the city with the worst on-time delivery rating in the nation. Today marks our third field hearing examining postal delivery in the last 10 months. Philadelphia, the host of our third hearing, is the birthplace of our Constitution and the hometown of the nation's first Postmaster General, Benjamin Franklin. This city is a fitting location to examine the Postal Service, which has transformed since its operations began even before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In 1753, Benjamin Franklin assumed the role of Deputy Postmaster General of the Colonies, helming a money-making mailing venue for Britain that catered exclusively to lawyers and business people. Then the Postal Service was too expensive for most people to access until Mr. Franklin took steps to democratize the service. Once he became Postmaster General, Franklin streamlined postal routes, improved accounting practices, and most importantly, Franklin made the Postal Service more equitable, lowering prices and expanding services to attract a universal customer base that ensured the Postal Service was not a darling of the rich and that it could serve as a vehicle for uniting the then colonies. It is with these egalitarian and foundational ideals in mind that we hold this hearing today in the cradle of the nation's liberty. We're here to ensure that the Postal Service continues to bond this nation as a union. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, our Postal Service workforce delivered prescriptions, medications, paychecks, foodstuffs, stimulus checks, holiday cards, gifts, rapid COVID tests provided by the Biden administration, and so much more to homes and businesses across the nation. A June 2020 Harris poll found that the Postal Service ranked as the single most essential company to Americans during the pandemic. It outranked companies that manufacture PPE and sanitizers. According to Pew Research, 91% of Americans had a favorable view of the Postal Service, making it by far the most popular agency associated with the federal government. The Postal Service employs 630,000 individuals who live in every single congressional district. That workforce delivers mail to more than 163 million delivery points every day and operates more than 31,000 postal offices nationwide. In April, I was proud to co-sponsor it. The Congress enacted the Postal Services Reform Act. This once-in-a-generation legislation puts the Postal Service on the path of financial solvency, unshackling it from unfair statutory burdens that kept it marred in unnecessary payments and debt. The bill plants the Postal Service on firm financial ground, readying it for the future. Now Congress must make sure that the Postal Service leadership is prepared and poised to take the reins we hand them. Recent reports and constituent voices leave us concerned that they are not. A recent Inspector General report, for example, found that the Postal Service has not been meeting the needs of its customers. In fact, the Postal Service Office of Inspector General found that the Postal Service only met service performance targets for 3 of 33 products in fiscal year 2020. Good, reliable service is vital to the Postal Service's long-term survival. Late or lost deliveries drive mailers away from using the Postal Service. Fortunately, nationwide service performance has improved since 2020, consistently meeting on-time delivery targets in most regions. We should certainly recognize that progress, but I want to note that the Postal Service reduced its on-time delivery targets during that time period, particularly for first-class mail. So, some of the improvement we see is pursuant to the lower standards adopted last year. And I think most consumers would like to see us go back to the higher standards and have high performance goals met there. Today we're in Philadelphia, a city of brotherly love, to look at on-time mail delivery and more. First, we want to highlight the Postal Service's recent announcement that it will consolidate functions, including more than 200 post offices and postal facilities across the country, including several here in Pennsylvania. In addition, the Postal Service previously announced it intends to cut up to 50,000 positions to reach a break-even point as part of Mr. DeJoy's 10-year plan. Chief among Congress's concerns is that Postal Service has once again failed to keep its key stakeholders effectively informed of their plans and how it will impact careers and everyday job performance. We also remain inherently skeptical of long-term Postal Service plans that rely on rate hikes, slower service, lower standards, fewer workers, and reduced infrastructure. Ben Franklin, who invested in more services for more people, would, I think, be dubious. We also have a keen interest in ensuring that the Postal Service is prepared to serve as a linchpin of the voting franchise. During the 2020 election, the Postal Service delivered roughly 543 million pieces of election mail, including 135 million ballots to and from voters, a 96% increase from 2016. In 2022, the Postal Service has already helped deliver ballots for 42 primaries, runoffs, and special elections. Compared to the same time period in 2018, election mail volume has increased 200% and growing. Pennsylvania is a key crossroads for American democracy. We must ensure that everyone has unfettered access to vote using the methods that work best for them. Many states have deadlines for requesting and returning election ballots that make it difficult or potentially impossible for Postal Service employees to deliver them to election officials in time to qualify as a valid vote. In other states like Pennsylvania, conservative legislators have sought to place restrictions on mail-in voting, citing utterly unfounded election fraud claims. Vote by mail is safe and effective. So safe and effective that both former President Trump and the current Postmaster General Louis DeJoy vote by mail. Today we seek to answer questions that ensure that the Postal Service is ready for its consequential role in this November's midterm elections. Mail theft and mail-related crime have skyrocketed in Pennsylvania and across the nation. Between 2018 and 2021, robberies of mail carriers more than tripled, and robberies involving a gun more than quadrupled, according to Postal Service data. The Postal Inspection Service is opening cases in only a fraction of these crimes, offering little in the way of crime prevention. The Philadelphia Inquirer called Pennsylvania a hotspot for check theft, with 871 stolen checks found on the dark web in May of 2022 alone. Meanwhile, the Postal Police Force has shrunk to 455 officers, down 65% from 1,341 officers back in 2002. And the Postal Service has determined that these officers should be confined exclusively to Postal Service property, all but inviting would-be thieves and ill-doers to prey on postal workers and their customers while they're on delivery routes because they're not on Postal Service property. We need more postal police who are vested with the authorities needed to prevent crime and stop them where they happen. Finally, we need to make certain, as Postmaster General Benjamin Franklin did, that the Postal Service is accessible to everybody. We must ensure that rate hikes do not return the Postal Service to a service of the privileged. We must ensure that rate hikes are reasonable and reviewed. That's why today I introduced the Ensuring Accurate Postal Rates Act, which would require the Postal Regulatory Commission, which is oversight authority over the Postal Service's rate determinations, to restart their rate-making system review process and to include the positive financial effects of the Postal Service Reform Act to determine if existing enhanced rate increases are warranted. We have a full agenda of policy issues for today's hearing. And to start, we'll hear testimony from two constituents of our members in attendance today.